It looked more like strategy to me. Because, I mean, when it comes time to fucking, throw a punch, the guy can hit. And he's a precision fucking hitter from what I can tell. Even more so than Connor was when I was watching his fights. But Connor's a little bit more reckless. That motherfucker is more likely to be the aggressor in most of the engagements, I think. I think he's going to be coming at him pretty fucking hard. And I don't know how he'll deal with a guy like him. I really don't. But it's interesting to me because I just want to see – I want to see him win because it's going to piss a lot of people off, especially the people that are really, really into boxing, who really love the sport. I'm sure that'll really fucking piss them all off, which, yay, more fun for me, as Carlin would have said. More fun for me. But yeah, that's been my fucking investment into it is just, just the fucking – the hype surrounding it. Like I was in a goddamn dungeon group like 2 nights ago, and while I'm running dungeons in ESO, there's this heated debate going on about who's going to win the fight. I mean, so it's like all this crossover, the conversation like leaks into everything. So it's kind of funny how passionate people are about it for some reason.
If I was into ESO, we could make like 2 level 1 characters and give them the names of the boxers, and then they could just like fight each other barehanded in like the major city. Is there like a single hub city, or is it like just?
There's several, and but there's more like 3 that are like major, places where everybody sort of congregates and shit. And like,
and is it more or less by race?
Yeah, it's by what the fuck? Alliance, pretty much. Like, so, Ebonheart Pact, fucking Aldmeri Dominion.
Oh,
shit like
you know what? Even though you said ESO, for some reason I heard Lord of the Rings because you used to play Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. I used to play the shit out of that. And it was really funny. I don't know if I ever said this on this particular show or whatever, but like, fucking. There was a guy I was in a guild with on Lord of the Rings Online, and we'd played together for about a year, and he gave me this really impassioned speech one night about how he's so sick of the clan going inactive. He recruits a bunch of active members. We fucking do dungeons. We do all this shit, and then everybody gets bored and quit. Excuse me. And he's like, I'm so fucking sick of everybody getting goddamn fucking bored and quitting this game just when we start to make some headway, and on and on and on. And I was like, I hear you, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Just letting him vent. And then the very next motherfucking day, I started having major issues logging into this game. And I just could not resolve whatever this error I was getting was. And I did all kind of research. I spent like 3 hours trying to log back on. I just said, I'll fuck with it tomorrow. And tomorrow never came. And I literally quit playing the fucking game and just moved on to something else. And like, I could just imagine how pissed off he was.
Yeah.
Because I was like an officer in the guild and was very active and was pretty much playing.
I mean, that's the problem with the MMOs is the if they're successful, then it can just it just eats up so much. I mean,
yeah, it does. Yeah,
I actually a while back I went back on a one of those unauthorized World of Warcraft servers, and it was a Burning Crusade server. And is like everybody was excited to do the Burning Crusade content without the Lich King and the later stuff, and you have to do a vanilla Burning Crusade or Wrath server to see the old map before they did the Cataclysm changes, right?
Mm.
And I actually stopped once I reached Outland for whatever reason. That was just the point at which I just suddenly I just said fuck it, and I'm glad that. Because I remember when World of Warcraft was my first MMO, and there was a long time where I was a true addict, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm glad that I can play an MMO and quit it cold turkey, and I feel perfectly normal, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's still a huge time sink, a dangerous time sink, but
it is. It definitely is.
But now I'm at the point where I can just say, fuck it, tired of it, walk away.
Yeah. Well, the thing about MMOs is if I'm playing a game and I have no goals, I'll quit. So the thing about MMOs is, especially one like ESO, there's a lot to do in that game. You could spend a lot of time playing PvE, and then fucking the world of PvP in and of itself, people are just immersed in, and it's on ESO. It's a completely separate map. It's a completely separate set of rules, gameplay, stats change, and so people just become immersed in that and spend all their time doing that. And one day, if you just get fucking bored after a couple of years of being a PvP player, and then you enter the PvE world, you now have hours and hours and hours of content ahead to still keep you on playing that fucking game. I mean, just upgrading equipment takes a long time, earning the funds to do it, learning how to craft, doing research. It's unbelievable, like how much there is that you can actually do. On that game, it's just kind of like it's a fucking slow crawl towards your goals. So there's no need to really invest a ridiculous amount of time in it, because no matter how much time you spend fucking playing that game, it's going to take time. Like, you're not going to really get much of a leg up. It doesn't feel like you're going to make much headway because you spend fucking 10 hours playing that game.
Yeah.
Than if you turned it on for 2 hours during the day and then just said, fuck it, didn't play for a few more days.
You know, I when I was playing the Burning Crusade server, I did what I always do these days, and that is I constantly pick people's brains about ideas for games and how games could be improved. And man, I got some of the stupidest feedback of all time from the people playing that. It was just this one. We were talking about, okay, the guy who hosted the guild on the server is I don't know if you've heard of him, Smooth McGroove.
Oh yeah,
and so like he has his own guild on this Burning Crusade server. I don't know if he's still active, but he was streaming and we were playing, and he was talking about how much he hated daily quests. I don't know if they do the same thing in Lotro.
There's dailies. Yeah.
But he said he just hated the fact that there was gated content, and it started this discussion. And like I was just playing like Counterpoint for the sake of Counterpoint for the purpose of discussion, because I hate daily quests too. But I was doing it like a Counterpoint. It's like, well, how could we really make it better? And unfortunately, like whenever I ask how could we make it better, usually people are just out of ideas. Like they don't have a way to fix it. They just know they don't like it.
Right.
And,
one thing's easier to do than the other. It's much easier to be dissatisfied with something.
Yeah, and well, my idea, because like everyone was talking about how dissatisfied they were with the end game, but the end game is such a huge part of any MMO. That being, what do you do once you've hit the level cap, right?
Right. Yep.
And I was like throwing out these ideas about, okay, well, what if instead of doing the same daily quest where it's like, because like most of the dailies, you talk to an NPC and you go on maybe 3 or 4 different quests that are selected from a pool. Sometimes you get the same one twice in a row, or so it seems, right? And it's just boring. Like you deliver flowers to the same lady, kill the same NPCs. And I thought, well, what if every quest in the world, every single quest, you could randomly get a heroic version of that quest, right? Instead of doing the same 3 or 4 quests, you'd say, okay, go from here all the way across the continent, and it would be a quest that was, you could already have done while leveling, except that now it's like you get level appropriate enemies and rewards and shit.
Right, and maybe even like an additional challenge that wasn't there before, that kind of thing.
I mean, imagine I don't think you'd ever get tired of it. Well, I mean, that's an hyperbole, but you know what I mean? It's like, because like I did the Lore Master achievements in World of Warcraft, and there's so many quests and so many areas that most people just don't go because it's not part of the optimal path of leveling, right? So you could get a quest. I mean, because like I said, there was variety. I mean, people poke fun at MMOs for just like, oh, just go kill and get the feathers, or just kill these enemies. But there were a lot of weird quests, and it'd vary up your goal, it'd vary up your environment, it would vary up all this stuff, right? And everybody just shit on the idea. They're like, well, I just don't like the idea of dailies at all. And then another person said, I think the end game of an MMO should just be the end. You reach the level cap and you're done.
That's a shit idea.
that is the stupidest idea ever.
Right.
There is no way any MMO could be financially stable and do that.
Right.
It's fucking impossible. And that's the thing about these about like just your random gamer is like they just want you to take a gallon of fluid and put it into a liter jug.
Yeah.
It's like I'll ask people, well, what do you want to see? What do you think would be good? And they're just completely out of ideas. And then when they do come up with an idea, it's something that's fucking impossible. Right? It's like, well, I just want a game that's free to play but isn't pay to win, and you also don't, you also can't pay for cosmetic things that are better, and It's just completely free, but it's also very high quality and expensive. It's like, well, that's fucking
Right.
impossible unless like George Soros just says, I'm going to make a free to play, I'm just going to take a loss. I'm just going to put $1 billion into making a game, and I'm just going to eat the cost
Hey,
or write it
man.
off on my fucking taxes. That's
Fucking
basically it. Unless some industrialist like Soros or Carlos Slim from Mexico just says, I'm
fucking
going to make
George
a game and I'm not
Soros.
going to make a single penny of profit from it, that's not going to fucking happen. So either pay for the game like a normal person, or accept that if you want a free game, that there's going to be people who do pay who are going to have all the golden, engraved shit running around killing everyone, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
your own fault for being cheap.
I'm gonna write George Soros and suggest that he do that. We'd be like, since you're throwing money away, like on BLM and shit, this would probably be better. I mean, you're already fucking investing your money in something that's gonna basically amount to shit in your hand. Pretty much nothing. So hey, why not do this? My buddy had an idea for an MMO that you pay for.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound fun?
It's ridiculous. Yeah, but there was. Oh yeah, that was also the same. I don't know if it was the same person, but it was the same time I heard someone say, I was talking about death and difficulty, and I was talking about a world where like there were far more PvP opportunities and world PvP opportunities. You know what I mean? I really liked world PvP, and I thought, well, maybe we could make a system where there was a lot of brawling because in World of Warcraft they had something called the Fire Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before you could fly in the vanilla world. You could fly anywhere in Burning Crusade. You could fly anywhere in the Northrend, which was the Wrath of Lich King area. But you
Okay.
couldn't fly at the time in the vanilla world. And when they had the Fire Festival, what it was is there were all these fires that you had to visit, and they were equally distributed across Alliance and Horde territory, which meant you had to fight your way to most of the fires, right?
Yeah.
So you had people of all levels, but especially at the level cap, using roads that normally were just bare, right? And everywhere you went, there were people from there were people from both factions getting into brawls on the road, and it was
Right.
awesome. It was
Yeah.
some of the most fun I ever had playing the game because it was just constant brawling and people banding together with groups of sometimes strangers, sometimes guildies, so that they could get these fires, including fires that were in the capital cities of the opposition, so you had to form a sizable, I was a rogue, so I could just sneak in there and get it, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
other people had to, just charge in and fight their way past players and NPCs just to be able to get this achievement or the meta achievement, right? So, I mean, like I said, everywhere you went, you had to travel the old-fashioned way. Other people were forced to travel the old-fashioned way, and then you're just constantly getting into fights on the road, and it was fun. Right?
Yeah.
It was more fun than I had than in the previous month of playing. But the thing is, when I said, okay, well, what if we, did things to encourage people to do that, to use the low budget ground-based travel to get into fights, to fight for territory, to gank each other, to get guild battles and server battles, encourage that. And someone said, it sounds like. I'll try to remember the exact words. It says it sounds like you die a lot if that was the game. It sounds like in a game like that you'd be dying a lot because and that's
Probably.
right, because I was and I said, well, yeah, that's kind of the point. And he says, well, look at it this way. Being dead is the most boring part of the game. So the more you die, the more boring the game will be.
Okay, to which I would counter, the most exciting part of the game is fighting.
Yeah.
So, and in order to become dead, aka bored in your estimation, you must fight and play the game.
Yeah.
More
I was
engagement
just
means more
floored.
fun. Well, simultaneously, it means more death. It also means more fun. That one comes with the other. It's okay to fucking die because you will respawn and play more.
This
It's not-
person thought that they had this ironclad logic.
Right.
Like, the more you die, the worse the game. And it was like he was formalizing what most people just casually accept. It's like they just don't like to lose. So his idea of an entertaining game is one in which you never die.
Right. Where you're risking nothing and it's completely not exciting.
Yeah.
Right. I've played those games that are so fucking easy where there's no way I can be killed at a certain point, and it's just the most boring experience ever. I mean, like when you to see a normal enemy, see a guy with a sword and go, okay, I could probably kick his ass, and then you wander into a cave and there's this enormous fucking spider. It looks fucking insanely difficult, and you have the same feeling about the enormous spider as you did the little guy with the dagger, right? Like, how the fuck could that ever be fun? You know? I want to go into a room and be scared shitless for a couple seconds and try to decide, am I getting the fuck out of here, or maybe is this worth doing? You know, all that kind of shit. But yeah, like the PvP and ESO is exactly what you described at that event. It's basically just a bunch of people. The only way you can fast travel is if you have taken a keep or a resource, right? Like you've taken a farm or you've taken a mine or something like that. You can travel to the nearest keep. But if your alliance hasn't taken it, then you have to basically get on a fucking horse and move into enemy territory. And it's fun because, I've been, gathering resources kind of along the road and seen, an enemy person with an enemy alliance just riding their ass off across like a field or something, and just kind of follow them with an arrow and just let it loose and knock them off their fucking horse out of nowhere. And like this one guy did that to him, just knock him off his horse, and he turns around, and you could tell that this is probably a guy who had been traveling from point A to point B for a long fucking time, and he was almost there because I saw him. He was in enemy territory on the outskirts of it, at least, right?
Yeah.
So I knock him out, and he just turns around and he just looks at me. He didn't even buff or fucking, like, he was so disappointed that he got caught that he just kind of stood there and just let me fucking kill him. And I was like, damn, dude, I almost feel bad for you. Almost. Now take your ass back.
I loved fucking with people on the road. One time I was riding through this little, I think it's Darkshire, and there were like 3 or 4 low-level characters, just like standing in this fenced-off area where it was safe, and you could kind of see that either one of them was AFK or they were vented up and talking to each other. Who knows what they were doing, right? But I was with some other people. I was with 2 other people, also lobies. I was going to go help them get something, and when I saw them, I just leapt over the fence with my mount, landed right in the middle of them, and then did a single AoE that killed all of them instantly.
That's fun shit, dude. Oh, fuck.
And it was a knife-throwing AoE where you throw knives in all directions, so you can imagine how cinematic it was in my mind's eye.
Right.
Just like going into bullet time, throwing a knife, exactly 4 knives into 4 throats.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean it was that stuff is great, and like I said, between the level cap should just end the game, and dying is the worst part of the game, so you should die as infrequently as possible. Those are just 2 of the dumbest things I think I've ever heard about game design. Like if you let players, just ordinary players, and you actually give them what they want, you'll make the worst possible game.
Yeah, oddly enough.
You will make a game that looks like it's the game version of that old movie, The Room. It's just gonna be. I mean, except that it wouldn't have any camp value. Like it wouldn't become a cult classic. It would just be bad.
Right. I just can't believe anybody suggested that for an MMO, that it just ends. Like, well, it's not really an MMO anymore, really. I mean, I guess it is technically what it's describing, right? But MMOs have this continuity, right? Like you can always play them. That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
You can always go, but to create an expansive world where there's always something to do. Well, yeah, that's a fucking dumb idea.
I don't know, dude. What the fuck?
Yeah.
All right.
Anyhow,
so let's get back to this.
Yeah. All right. So let's explore a couple more times. Might try.
Regular goblin.
Cool. Okay. Well, here's a fight I can win.
Just attack.
Oh yeah, just attack the shit out of it.